Today on Sharpen My Axe, we have a guitar sent by a viewer, and it's actually going to another YouTube channel. A very good viewer, a very supportive viewer of this channel named Ballant, which you guys have probably seen some videos where he sent some guitars for Sharpen My Axe before, asked me if I would do him a favor. All he asked for was, would I check this guitar out and make sure it's okay before it goes to Dovydas. If you guys are familiar with Dovydas channel, I will put a link down below. A lot of you guys know his channel. And then he said my favorite part. He said I could do whatever I wanted to it before it goes to Dovydas. So let's go ahead and open the box. Okay, foam padding. This is what it is. So, you're thinking it's a miniature Telecaster. Kinda. This is a Tenor Tele by Fender Guitars. This guitar is part of the Alternate Reality series from Fender, and it comes in Lake Placid Blue, Butterscotch Blonde, and Fiesta Red. This guitar is made in the Ensenada, Mexico facility. It has an alder body, polyester finish. It has a U-shaped neck, although I feel like it feels like a really soft V. 9.5-inch radius fretboard, 21 frets with vintage tall fret wire, synthetic bone nut. It says scale length is 22.75, so obviously shorter than normal Fenders and even normal Gibsons. Nice weight. It's not super light, but it's not heavy at all. I'd say 6 pounds. Tuning on this is interesting because you can tune it a bunch of different ways. You can tune it DGBE, so it's a 4 high strings on a guitar. You can tune it GDAE, so you can do it for you mandolin players. You get like a low tuned mandolin. Now keep in mind it's the same tuning but an octave lower. And of course you can do it like a tenor guitar, another tenor guitar, which is CGDA. One of the things I'm concerned about this is the string is literally shooting straight across to the tuning keys. They didn't put a string tree here. Now my guess, and I'm just guessing, it's probably not a cost savings thing that they didn't do. My guess is because they didn't want to put a giant string tree in front of the Fender logo. So I'm not saying this is a fact, I'm giving you my impression. My impression is that Fender made a choice to go with the optics. In other words, they wanted the headstock to look great, although I think they should have just made the Fender logo smaller and stuck the string tree there. But what I'm going to do is fix that, and I'm going to do it without having the drilling holes in the guitar. So we're going to fix that. And setup-wise, the frets feel pretty good. I'm feeling them right now. I'll probably polish the fret ends. There's not bad fret sprout, but there's a little bit, just a little bit of fret end treatment. I'm going to go ahead and round off the fret ends a little bit, smooth them over. And action looks good, but we'll give it a play. We'll make sure the action's good, the intonation's set. So now you can see what I'm saying again by the fact that there's no down pressure on the string. So it can pop out of the nut, and it not only for that issue, but also for tuning stability. So since we're not going to drill a hole and put a string tree, we're going to put some staggered tuning keys. And what's great is I've done so many locking keys installed with Fender that I have some extra shorter tuning keys, the same brand. So we're going to put those in. So let's take the strings off. Now this is probably a good time to mention this. A lot of you guys use those battery powered winders and they're fine, but I like to use this winder attachment from Planet Waves Addario. I have about 3 or 4 of them. They cost about $6 a piece. I leave them around. I can put them in my drill. I can put them in this powered screwdriver. It's great. I don't feel like I have to worry about it going bad on me. I use a 10mm nut driver and just go ahead and take these off and go to the next step. Now Fender uses a compression fit system with 2 plugs, so all you do is a little push with your thumb. You don't need to unscrew anything, just again undo the nut, push it through. Now you can see here I have the same tuning key. The only difference is it's shorter. So I'm going to put 2 shorter ones in the high strings. Now some of you might have questions, can you do the third one right there? And you can. Now that I did the 2, maybe 3 would have been better, but I think I'm going to stick with 2 because that's what I set up for. It took about 1 minute to replace those tuning keys, so obviously very fast, and you can see the results. I decided to look inside the control cavity to see what was going on, to see if there was anything interesting, and the only thing I noticed was they're using the cheap import switch. They're not using standard 3-way switch they would normally use on a made in Mexico or made in USA Tele. Now the potentiometer is the same, but the switch is cheaper, and here's why. When I measured it, it was obvious to figure out. This guitar is so thin that the standard Fender switch won't fit in there. So that's why they're using the cheaper switch. So like I was saying, we're going to take care of the frets. Now this guitar doesn't have fret sprout where the frets are popping out. What this has is the fret ends are just not very polished. So we're going to round them over, and first we're going to painter's tape off the pickup so we don't get any metal filings on the pickup. Now the first thing we're going to use is my favorite file. It's the fret end dress file. I'll put a link down below so you can get one. They're pretty expensive for what they are, but they are worth their weight in gold. Do not buy these cheap junk ones that you can find on Amazon and other places. Let me show you a demonstration of the file I use and the files that you can find on Amazon. See, pretty horrific. Now the fret dress file that I'm about to use on this guitar is one of the most common fret files used in manufacturers, by luthiers, by repair techs around the world. And you can see from this illustration that one side of the file is flat and one is rounded over. Now, we used to just do this ourselves, but to be honest with you, maybe because we're too lazy or just because for 15 bucks it's not worth the time to do it anymore, now we just buy them rounded over. But I remember having to file my files and round them over like this. Although this file is great, what you're about to see me do, I want to put a disclaimer that I don't know if I would suggest to anyone doing this for the first time on a maple fretboard, especially a finished maple fretboard. There is finish on this guitar, and I'm going to be moving very quickly. This is more of an illustration to show you what I do. I would suggest trying it on a guitar that not only has rosewood, but is a guitar that you're okay with if you damage it because it's something you're working on, and go from there. Now, like I was saying, we're going to use the rounded side of the file, put it towards the fretboard, and use it to glide over the fretboard so that the sides of the file just kind of graze the metal. And you can see we're using like a V pattern, and I'm just coming at it each very softly. And this is just taking off the nubs, I guess is the word I'm going to use, of the side of the frets. And again, we can use it to just round over each fret. You can see it's very nice. See how very delicate I'm doing this? I'm not in a hurry. The other thing I want you to notice is I have full control of the file. Notice that I'm holding it with my left hand and I'm guiding it because I don't want it to kind of run off the rails and scar the fretboard. That's where you're probably going to have damage. Not from the rounded side, but if it slips, it might score or scratch the fretboard, and that's definitely something you don't want to happen. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are asking, hey, why don't you just use some painter's tape and cover up the fretboard? You totally can. In fact, I would recommend it. It takes a little time, but it'll save you some aggravation, especially if you're new to this. Now, I'd like to point out, though, the reason I'm doing this way is because in the past, I always did it with painter's tape, but a couple of viewers that saw me do my actual work noticed I wasn't doing it with painter's tape. It's because if you go to factories, they don't do it that way either. We kind of move really quickly with this file. If you see master luthiers, you'll see we move this file very quickly, very efficiently across the fretboard. It's really a very kind of like a nice delicate dance, and that's what I wanted you to see is how I'm lightly doing it. Like I said, this is a very delicate process. It's almost like I don't want to take any material off the frets. Now that I've rounded over the frets, they feel great. Now I got to polish them, so I can use micro mesh pads, I can use this touch-up stick, I can use the micro mesh sanding sheets with a block, or I can use steel wool. I'm just going to use the touch-up stick because, believe it or not, I didn't do much. I just lightly took off some of the burrs off the ends. So what I like about the touch-up stick is I can individually do each fret, and it's a really easy process. I start with the coarsest side, then I go down to the next coarsest side, and then the least coarsest side. And what's nice is it takes, again, minutes. This whole process doesn't even really need to be sped up for the filming. I could probably film this, and you'll notice that the time it took to file and do the polishing was about 15 minutes. Dovydas has this cool logo, so I thought it'd be fun to recreate it and put it on his pickguard. Then I used an X-Acto knife to go ahead and cut out things like his pickups. So here we go. We have the Dovydas Fender Tenor Telecaster. And I polished over the ends, and they feel much better. I think you'll appreciate that, especially on a small neck like this. The massive difference, I think, is to changing out those two tuning keys to the smaller ones, or the shorter ones, I should say. I think a string tree would be better, but given what we're doing, was good. Now that I did it, I'm sure you were probably thinking, should I've done 3? Maybe 3, but I think 2 and 2 is fine, and it works out great because it's what I had. But 3 would probably be better, maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. It's good enough now. That's the important part. So I have it tuned the way Fender recommended, which is D, G, B, E. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what it does, at least get you some of the ideas of the positions. Let's start with the neck position. Very cool. Okay, so in the middle position, I like it. It's got a very nasal telly sound. It's got a nasal telly sound, I'm trying to say. I'm going to use my Java slide. Now, Java slide is a porcelain slide that fits like on your finger, like a ring finger. As you can see, it's really cool there. The owner of Java slide sent one of these out a while back, and I've been messing with it. And I thought today was a great way to kind of demonstrate why you'd want it. I'm going to do some makeshift slide stuff. I'm not a slide player by any means, but at least you'll get the idea. Now, I'm going to go to the bridge position. I've added some delay, and the thing that I like is, I'm sure you could use this, especially the twangy bridge, for some bluegrass, some folk, some blues, but I like the idea of maybe adding this guitar to your songwriting for some more instrumentation kind of sounds, something different than your normal guitar. So there you have it, the Fender Telecaster tenor guitar. And so if you're interested in this, if you think this is a cool idea of a guitar, these are kind of expensive, but keep in mind that Eastwood Guitars is just one of the few manufacturers that I know of that makes these in a standard fashion. In other words, if you go on their website, there's a ton of different tenor style guitars like this. And although they're not inexpensive, they are less expensive than what Fender's making. Maybe even think about just maybe capoing up and messing with your guitar in a way like this. Think of just different ways to make music. It's always a fun thing. I want to thank Ballant for sending the guitar out. I want to thank my patrons, because without them I wouldn't be able to afford the shipping and the other cost of doing this to get this down to Dovydas. And I hope Dovydas likes it, because I think it's great. Not because of what I did, just because I think the guitar is fun. And as always, I want to thank you guys so much for the time you give me. And until the next time, know your gear.